People who have had friends stab you in the back. What is the story? My husband and I, had a friend that we helped get back on his feet. Paid off some tickets he had. Got his license reinstated. Hooked him up with a solid connection for a reasonable, well-running car to replace his beater. And gave him a place to live and a job, automotive repair. He decided it was a better choice to tell all our customers we were overcharging them. Spoiler, we weren't. And he'd do the jobs cheaper if they'd bring it to him at his house. This was a short time after he moved out of our house, after never repaying anything he owed us. Not that we'd asked. Broke my heart. I had a best friend that I knew for 16 years. She got pregnant and her parents tried to kick her out. Her parents wanted her to get an abortion but she refused. One of our HS friends told me someone should push her down a flight of stairs so she can miscarry. I told her that's a very bad idea and defended my best friend. The next day, the principal came by my class to ask me if I could attend a meeting about something important. If I didn't attend, I was going to be expelled. When I arrived to the meeting, a shared friend claimed I was going to shove my best friend down flights of stairs so she can miscarry. My best friend believed her. We stopped talking after that. Years ago when I did a health sciences undergraduate degree, most of the cohort was determined to get into medical school. Our medical school program mainly accepted students from only our competitive undergraduate course due to subject prerequisites. We all knew each other and were friendly, hanging out together and forming study groups. Many of my friends were great. We shared tips, resources, practiced exams and interviews together. But there were a handful who really wanted to get into medical school, and since the program ranks applicants mainly based on undergraduate results, the better your friends perform, the lower your ranking is for selection. So near application time, some of us would head off to the university library to borrow out textbooks to find chapters or page numbers that the lecturer mentioned would be on the exam, and they would be ripped out. You'd go and find another library copy of the textbook, and that page would be ripped out too. All of them, totally removed in a hurry. I didn't believe that someone from our cohort did it until interview practice began. Students began obtaining copies of the questions from previous years and lying when others asked if they had it. I saw someone give a terrible awful interview answer and the other student would give them glowing feedback and inform them they should say that word for word during the interview. It was a shit show and a lot of relationships fell apart or were never the same again. Had a good bud of mine, who's the godfather of my son, living with me and my wife. I travel a lot for work and was out of the country for about 6 months in the Middle East. Came back and found out she was pregnant with twins and that they weren't mine. My mother told me she was sick of being with dad. She told me a bunch of things he'd done which made her afraid of him. She asked me to tell a few of her close friends about how she was being treated because she wanted them to understand why she was leaving. Then she decided to stay with him. So she told her friends that she had no idea what was wrong with me, but they should pray for me because it looked like I was going through something. My own mother stabbed me in the back. My best friend since 4th grade called her my soul sister. I genuinely was so grateful to have what I thought our friendship was. She fell on hard times, got weirdly religious, and stopped working while going to a private uni. I was always there for her, shoulder to cry on, visited her all the time, because she didn't have any friends and I knew she was lonely, helped her with groceries and rent, helped her family out. One day she came over, and after buying her groceries, she told me a higher power has been telling her to cut me off for 2 years, and she had to listen. Now she wants to be friends again. Ice a hard nope from me dog. Asked 2 of my friends if they wanted to live together in college. Then one of them asked another person in our friend group if he wanted to join in as well. Then they asked another, and another. And then once there were too many people for one apartment, they dropped me out of it. No longer friends with any of them. Was kinda a wake up call though, because I definitely gave way too much of myself to those people not knowing that I was the most expendable one. It really taught me not to put others on a pedestal and respect myself more, and has since led to me developing far more healthy relationships that bring me a lot of happiness. I had one friend who honestly wasn't my favorite person. because she was really manipulative, but I never said anything bad about her. I found out that she had been shit talking me to all of our mutual friends and telling them all that I did horrible things that I never did. Ended up essentially being pushed out of that entire friend group, and it ruined a lot of my high school experience. I had some friends who were always talking crap about me, found out from another good friend, and one day it came to school in my brand new jeans that costed around 150 euros, and they put glue on my chair while I was in the bathroom. I sat on it. I asked which one of them did it. None of them said a word. We went to the principal's office and these pos had the balls to say that I'd put it there to get them in trouble. Their parents were called, and I earned around 200 euros and a new pair of jeans. For several years, I was best friends with two other girls in my elementary school. We always hung out together at school and outside of school. When I was 10, I befriended a nice boy in my class and rumors started circling that he was my boyfriend. He was not. However, they got jealous that I was spending time with him and befriended some kids who liked to tease me. Then, word got around that I had started my period, and apparently this was hilarious and also conclusive proof that I could no longer be friends with them. So one day after school, those girls and their new friends ganged up on me and tried to beat me up to signal the end of our friendship. Then, when I was 11, I attended a new school and I became friends with these girls who were really nice to me. I was the only foreigner in the class, and it was a bit difficult for me to adjust, so I was grateful that some students were being welcoming. They invited me to a sleepover to celebrate one girl's birthday, and they sexually assaulted me by groping me and trying to forcibly undress me despite my protests. Obviously, I was massively disturbed, and after that, kept my distance. Then they had the audacity to ask why I was ignoring them. I don't know, because you clearly have no respect for me or my bodily autonomy. When you have multiple instances of friends harming you and betraying your trust during a pivotal point in your childhood, it seriously damages your ability to connect with others or maintain a healthy self-image. A guy who seemed like a good mate when it was just us, and then as soon as there was someone else or a group, he took the piss out of me and tried to make me the butt of all jokes. Even worse if there were girls around. After a while, I called him out on it, and he was just like, dude, it's just a joke. But I was done with him after that. I saw him randomly earlier this year, after years of no contact, and it was amicable, and we caught up a bit on how we are getting on with our lives. And while he has grown up and become a bit more grounded, there's been no intention of rebuilding a bridge. I think if I ever met someone who has that side to their personality, I'd drop them like a hot potato. Grew up going to the same church and met my friend and her family when I was 14. We grew up together, hung out, and our families would be together all the time. Fast forward many years and I'm dating a guy that I fell in love with for almost 3 years at the time. He went to Indy to the oil fields for work. I went to visit him and could tell something was off a bit. Took the train from my town to Williston, 22 hours to get there. Visited him for 5 days, and on the last day he gets up and goes to shower. I grab his phone. We had an open policy with each other that either could be on each other's phones. I found the emails between my friend and him. My family still hangs out with her family and her. I refuse to be around or speak to her. IDK if this counts, but it hurt. In HS I had who I thought was my best friend. Almost inseparable. Our favorite band at the time was Good Charlotte and they were on tour. She got tickets and forced a third party friend who didn't even like them to go with her instead of me. Not saying she owed me, but if it was me, I would take my best friend who likes the band instead of someone who doesn't want to be bothered. It always sat wrong with me. Around March I was happily walking along to see my boys to discuss how we were going to continue implementing various ideas and whatnot. I got to the meeting place and my peeps were all smiles, and then one of them grabbed my tunic and ripped it off, and then they all surrounded me and started stabbing my back, and the dude I thought was my closest homie looked me in the eyes as he did it. Fucking Brutus, I trusted you, bro. A quiet girl I made friends with would only sit with me in class, just so she can go snitch about me to my ex-friends. She would literally sit next to me for 1 or 2 classes, randomly, then go sit with them, later. I called her out on it after she came to sit next to me and told her, why do you even bother sitting with me when we both know you're just trying to get shit to talk about me with them? When I come back from the bathroom you better go sit somewhere else. I was usually very quiet and that was the first time I stood up for myself. In college, my best friend and I had an art class together with a guy I was hanging out with on the regular, getting to know each other to see if there was anything more there. He and I hung out, messed around, had fun, etc. Nothing formal or spoken just yet, but we communicated daily. We were more than friends, but not a dedicated couple. One day I stopped by his house after a morning class for a reason that I forget. Knocked, no answer, so I let myself in the unlocked door. Small Kansas town, nobody locks anything, so I could leave him a note, pre-cell phone / texting, at least for me. Well, her purse was on the chair by the door. Nobody answered when I called out his name. Or hers. His car was there. Her purse was there. They were there. Ugh. I got back at her though. Almost 20 years later, she friend requested me on Facebook, and I denied that bitch. Take that, Jessica. Was at a party with my cousin and his friends. I just moved, so I didn't know them or anyone at the party. I start talking to this really pretty girl. We wander away from the party and start talking. Really hit it off. We kiss some, and then head back. My ugly ass excited and nervous. We drink some more, she gets more and more physical. We move to a bedroom. Right when I go to close the door, my cousin's buddy comes up and say they need me. I'm like, alright, so we start walking. I turn back and see my cousin and one of his friends go in the room behind me. I was like, hey, my cousin just went in that room. Dude straight up tells me my cousin likes her and he was told to get me away from her. I go back to the room, it's been a couple minutes. They have a spit roasted. Didn't learn my lesson, took another 6 months for me to finally cut him and his shit friends out of my life. In 2014 I woke up January 1st in horrible pain. I ended up needing an emergency surgery to remove my gallbladder. I was a single mom to 2 kids under 5 and had just moved back to my hometown after living out of state. We'd had to leave a really shitting living situation and had only been back about a month, and I had not found a job at that point. I had a really close family friend who had been living with me before I had moved back, and he ended up homeless. So I bought him an $80 bus ticket and got him back to our hometown and let him stay with me a few days. He quickly found another place to stay, but we had invited him to my youngest son's 2nd birthday, which is the 6th of January. I was like 4 days out from surgery at this point and could barely make it down my stairs at this point. So he offered to go and pick up the pizza and cake for my son for me. We didn't have a huge party or anything. I was on food stamps and had cash assistance since my son's dad was not involved at all and did not pay child support. Even so, I offered for him to get himself a small pizza to take back to the girl he was staying with since her and her kids couldn't make it over. So party goes great. Everyone has a good time, especially both my kids. A few days later my grandma was going to go grocery shopping for me, so I go to get my card and realize it's not there. I never got it back from the guy, and I'd forgot he even had it, since I was all doped up on pain meds from surgery. I tried calling him like 5 times and he didn't answer, so I get onto my account online to check my balance and he took everything. I had like $600 in cash, paid my rent, and bought my kids the things they needed, and then I had like $750 in food stamps. All of it was gone. He let the girl he was staying with convince him to steal my money from me. I'd only use the money to buy the bus ticket and the pizza and cake for my son, since I'd been in the hospital for the first 4 days of the year and only home for 2 after that. It is still to this day the most intentionally fucked up thing anyone has ever done to me, mostly because it was such a huge fuck you to my kids. Like, who steals from a single mom recovering from a life-saving surgery on her kid's birthday? Especially after I helped him. Like, holy shit. I've told bits and pieces of this story before, but in short, several years ago I moved to Florida. Almost immediately after I met a friend. He was a great guy, so I thought, and we'd constantly hang out / he'd show me around the town / this state, etc. About a year and a half of knowing him, he stole a couple of my credit cards and racked up really big bills. Unfortunately for me, and I know this now but didn't then, I simply thought calling the credit card company to report your card stolen and cancelling the account also vacated the charges. That's not true. You actually have to formally contest the charges separately, and you only have 60 days. By the time I realized this, it was too late. I tried, in vain, to semi-reconcile with him to try to get a payment plan. He begged me not to call the police. I regret now that I didn't. I did believe that he had fallen on hard times and he would get back on his feet and try to repay me. That didn't happen. Although, later on he did get arrested for something else and was put on probation. I figured that would have been the best time to try to recoup the money lost. I had fallen behind on these payments and my credit was starting to suffer. I had to drop out of college because of that. I did try instead to take him to small claims court. I do realize that civil court is not criminal, but with him now being a convicted felon I might stand a better chance at looking much better. Instead, when we got to court, he denied everything, said everything was a gift, and completely slandered me in open court. Why he was allowed to get away with it is beyond me, but that case was dismissed. I got nothing. My credit suffered for years because of that. I eventually did save up enough money to file for bankruptcy to just get rid of that debt that I couldn't repay, nor should I have had to. I have never really forgiven him for what he did to me. A fake he still lives around. Luckily I haven't seen him in several years. IDK what I'd even say if I ever did encounter him. The bankruptcy did eliminate that debt, so I cannot and will not ever say he owes me anything monetarily. But he owes me a huge apology. But like I said, I would seriously doubt the sincerity of it and likely wouldn't accept it anyway. I think the best is as it is now. He just stays away from me.